Beech caves in Staffordshire became famous in the 90s for hosting illegal raves. But did you know it's got a much more interesting history than just raving? The history of these caves goes right back to the Triassic period, about 250 million years ago. It was then that the landscape that would eventually become the area around Beech caves began to take shape. The climate back then was very different than it is today. It was very dry, and this played a crucial role in forming the sandstone. But let's fast forward a few years to 1633, and that's the first record of anyone actually quarrying here. On August the 31st of that year, records show that Roger Lowe was paid to quarry stone from the site, and this stone was specifically intended to construct the new Trentham Hall, which was designed in the Elizabethan style. Beech is not far from Trentham, so this made sense that they would use locally sourced stone. During the 1600s, the caves remained a key source for quarrying, which reflected its established role in supplying stone for construction in the local area. And the fact that it was quarried for quite a while meant that there was obviously a high demand for the good quality sandstone. The way that this quarry was quarried was known as pillar and stall workings, which is similar to the video I did recently at Kent's Hill Quarry in Audley. This technique of quarrying allowed the stone to be removed efficiently without the need to clear the overlaying surface material, so they would leave columns of stone intact to support the roof while extracting the surrounding stone, and that's what's formed the caves that are here today. Beech caves have floors set across 5 different levels, ranging from about half a metre to 6 metres in height. And there isn't really any evidence of explosives being used here, because it would have just destroyed the stone. Instead, all of this was probably hand quarried with a pickaxe, which is what these markings are. And as you can imagine, this was not easy, it was very slow going. In 1932, they found a Charles I shilling in the caves, and he ruled England from 1625 to 1649, so this ties in perfectly with the first recorded quarrying activity in 1633. There's not really much record of quarrying after this time, but the caves served as a venue for a variety of local community activities. If you head over to my website, which is the Red-Haired Stokey, I've put a lot of the news articles on there that you can have a look at, of all of the different things that happened in these caves. In the 1800s, it became known for its local historical and geological significance, and it was a popular destination for local rambling groups that loved it for its natural beauty, and also outdoor enthusiasts. Gatherings and events were held here for religious. The scouts stayed over and camped in the caves. By the 1850s, it's marked as an old quarry on the local OS maps. This gives us an idea that the quarrying stopped quite early on, and the caves were more enjoyed throughout the 1800s as just that, caves. Interestingly, the quarry was marked as an old quarry on both sides of the road, but we do know that the quarry went right up into Beech, because there's a cottage up there called Beechdale Cottage, owned by Mr. and Mrs. Green, who I went and spoke to before I recorded this video. And in their back garden, they've got a large wall that is part of the old quarry. And in their garden, before they built their cottage, they had 2 of the old quarry workers' cottages. If you would like to know more about this, then make sure you head over to the redhairedstokey.co.uk and take a look at the article, because I've put the old photographs on there. Mr. Green very kindly took me round and showed me the old quarry and where the quarry cottages used to be. It's very interesting, they were actually built into the rock. But these caves were only known as Beech Caves from 1924, and that was because on the OS map they were officially written down as Beech Caves. They were known locally in the newspapers as Beech Caves or Beech Village Caves, but the OS map is the first recorded official document, I suppose, that records it as Beech Cave and not as a quarry. During the Second World War, there was a lot of speculation about what these caves were used for, because they were declared out of bounds to the local population. And obviously, over the years, people had thoroughly enjoyed going in and out of these caves whenever they wanted to. So this led to widespread belief that the caves were being used for military use. There's a few things that lead us to believe that they were used for military purposes. One of the theories is that they were used as ammunition storage, either for Swinnerton Ordnance Factory or for the military base that was at Trentham. There has also been rumours that the caves played a part in safeguarding the UK's gold reserves. Now, there is no hard evidence of this. There's no hard evidence of any of this being used in World War II. However, this speculation about the gold was fuelled because in the war, the ballroom at Trentham Gardens was used by the Bank of England. And it was used as a clearinghouse for doing the checks and things like that. Banks from all over the country came and worked there, and they actually moved a lot of the things up from London on special trains. So, you never know. This whole cave could have been full of gold at one point, and we will never know. There is another thing that leads us to believe that this was held by the military. There was a lady called Mrs. Pickering who gave an interview in 1987 to the Sentinel, and she lived in Beech, and she said that the caves were used as a decoy operation to mislead enemy forces and protect RAF Swinnerton. And she got this story from the 8 RAF officers that stayed with her in Beech. After the war, the caves took on a sort of unofficial party location, and it was as far back as the 1950s. The mods and the rockers used to go and have barbecues and parties and listen to music, and this was in the 50s. From the 1980s to the early 2000s, the caves were a popular spot for underground rave parties. And it was a great place for the raves because it was out of the way, there wasn't much parking, it's pretty easy to get to. But there was a lot of noise complaints, littering and damage to the caves because obviously people can't just enjoy something, they have to wreck everything. Which is why the caves are covered in graffiti. I mean, come on guys, it's not even good graffiti. This is absolutely rubbish. Get down here and do some proper art if you're going to do it well. There's still a lot of evidence of the quarrying, like these holes in the stone were for the wooden platforms that held the scaffolding to quarry further and further up. Recently there's been a lot of concern about the safety of the area. I mean, this whole quarry is about 2,800 square metres, and it's a historically important place. But it can be dangerous. The roof does cave in sometimes, sandstone falls off, people have fallen off the top. And there are talks about closing it to the public. So if you still want to visit these caves and you want everybody to enjoy them, it's probably best that you don't wreck them and you're sensible when you're there. Otherwise we're all going to lose the privilege of visiting these caves. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to head over to my website, which is theredhairedstokey.co.uk, and check out the article that I've written that goes along with this. And don't forget to follow. Thanks for watching.